Well, when we're done here on Sports Extra each and every Sunday night, we hand it off to Graham Bensinger. A new season of In Depth starts tonight with another batch of the biggest names in sports. Charles Barkley, the guest on the season premiere, and the host is here with us tonight to talk all about it. Welcome Graham back to RTV6, back to Sports Extra. Welcome back to Indianapolis.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate you having me.
How've things been? Busy guy. It's keeping you going.
Yeah, we're on this 20-city, 10-day PR tour right now. This is the second to last stop. We drive to St. Louis from here, and so just borderline senile, but we're getting through it. And it's, it's been a really fun experience because we're on the air, another season, another season to promote, and, it's a fun time.
I'm looking at the first batch of guests you got coming up this season here. As this thing has kept going, the names get bigger, and you are able to find these stories and kind of these hot-button people in sports that are really pertinent right now.
I appreciate you saying the names are getting bigger. You would think, I created the business behind the series and we personally syndicated it ourselves. So spent like a couple hundred days on the road traveling around to local markets just trying to sign on a station in each market. And so the distribution, the audience size of this series has grown season over season. I wish I could say that the guest booking got easier in terms of getting access to these guys season over season, but it's still a huge struggle. We have Charles Barkley for the debut episode, and you see Barkley in the media all the time. He's always out there doing interviews, but I've been going after him for 6 years and could not, for the life of me, get him to sit down. And he told me he would do it. Like, he gave me his cell phone number, we would text, I'd see him at events, but then I'd ask him during NBA season, and he'd say, I'm working. I'd ask him during the off season, he'd say, I'm on vacation. And it was just kind of this cyclical, process where I'm like, okay, I'm never going to get him. But we managed to get him to sit down. It's the debut episode. And what he told me was he just hates doing interviews about himself. So he was actually surprisingly nervous before, we sat down, which was making me uncomfortable because he's a guy who always likes to have fun. But we talked about everything from the father he never had growing up, to his broken relationship with Michael Jordan, to present day. And so that's who we were able to get for the debut episode.
Was Barkley a guy that opened up a little to you as the conversation went on?
I think so, because, he just rarely does interviews about himself. It's about, whatever the hot button issue or topic of the day is, generally. So I think he did. And I think what's, nice about Barkley is I think you would agree as, interviewers, it's always kind of refreshing when the person is going to be just completely honest with you and tell you exactly how they see it. Kind
of a limited filter there. You find that with any of your guests, though, the people that kind of turn that little man in their brain off and just will really talk about anything?
I think we're lucky that we're able to put probably about 100 hours of research into each interview preceding the sit-down between myself, one of the producers, and the series researcher. And, I probably talked to like half a dozen people close to the individual I'm interviewing before the interview. So I think just as a result of that, we're oftentimes, lucky to be able to come into the interviews with topics they haven't been asked about a million times before. And when they see you're prepared, it just helps in getting better access. A good example, we were doing one with Duke's Mike Krzyzewski, and I found out a couple days before the interview he was friends with the then chairman of Morgan Stanley, a guy by the name of John Mack. Found John Mack's email address just on Google, sent the chairman of Morgan Stanley an email, and I kid you not, 5 minutes later, he gives me a call, ends up spending an hour with me on the phone saying, you got to ask Mike this, you got to give him crap about that. And then before the interview with Coach K, I'm like, I talked to John Mack last night, and he told me, I need to ask you about so-and-so. And you can almost see it in the guy's eyes, that it's like things like that helps in getting a little better access than you'd otherwise normally be able to get. So I think if we're able to get the athletic figures to sometimes open up about some of the sensitive subject matter or share stories they generally are uncomfortable sharing, it's more just a result of some of the research we're able to put in.
If you're able to avoid cookie-cutter questions, you find you are able to avoid the cookie-cutter answers.
Right, exactly. That is well said. Yeah, and I think you'd agree. It means a lot when you can get the person you're interviewing to the place that they're willing to open up to you, because it means they trust you enough to share those stories.
Yeah, we got a clip from the Charles Barkley interview coming up here tonight. A little past and a little present with Barkley. Here's Graham Bensinger's interview.
How do you think those Olympics impacted the game of basketball globally?
I think it changed the world. Because if you go back, we didn't have many European players, any foreign players in NBA back then. It all started after the 92 Dream Team.
What do you think will be next for you?
I would like to run an NBA team. That's my next goal. I think I'll be good at it. I think I've studied really hard. I think I know basketball. I just got to surround myself with a good supporting cast.
And it seems that part of the conversation, you were talking about the Jordan part of it earlier that comes up earlier in the show there. That's another one of those, he's done basketball his entire life, and it seems that Charles, he seems to get it, that there's more to it than just the game.
He does. I thought was kind of interesting in how that came about was for the longest time he was interested in getting into politics and running for governor of Alabama. Yeah. And so I said to him, it doesn't seem like you really want to do that anymore. And he's like, no, I just hate, I hate the political system, in general. He believes, he can help in creating change from donating money, and he's recently donated a few $1 million of his own money to help in some of his public education efforts. But he really wants to run his own NBA team, or run an NBA team. Yeah. At some point, with as much success as he has as a broadcaster, he's really kind of been there, done that. It's kind of run its cycle in his mind, and he's ready to move on. And then, in terms of Michael Jordan, his longtime close friend and the guy he credits as really having the most significant impact on his basketball career out of anybody. We also, talk about kind of their fractured relationship, and it's because Charles was just honest and, spoke what he felt with regards to, Jordan's tenure as owner of the Bobcats and some of the poor decisions he believed Jordan had made. And Michael was, less than appreciative over Charles' comments.
Be some great insight coming up tonight at midnight there with Charles Barkley on In Depth. Who else we got coming up first part of the season here? Who can we look forward to?
Sure. She just lost, obviously, in the U.S. Open, but Caroline Wozniacki, we have her week 2. She's been very successful in her own right. Spent 2 years ranked #1 in the world, but has obviously been in the news more as of late because of golfer Rory McIlroy breaking off his engagement with her. She opens up extensively about what happened with regards to that and the 10-minute phone call in which he did it in. And so we have that week 2. Emmett Smith week 3. We'll have Adrian Peterson and Aaron Rodgers later in the season.
Nice.
As well. And then we also just recently got back from Africa, where we spent the better portion of a week in the Congo with NBA legend Dikembe Mutombo.
Wow.
So that'll be later in the season also.
A lot to look forward to. Do you notice that your guests are more media savvy than maybe when you kind of first started this adventure a few years ago?
In what ways?
Just because of maybe the growth of social media, and that these people are kind of in the public eye even more so as athletes now than they were before. Do you get that in making a television connection with people?
I think the athletes obviously generally make some portion of their income from sponsors.
Sure.
And with regards to social media, I think everybody recognizes who's going after endorsements, the benefit of, having an increasing social media audience.
Yeah.
So, even if there's not something directly for these athletes to promote, I think they do oftentimes, see value in doing media to help, grow their social audiences. But, the challenge is whether you're an athlete or a member of the media, there are just so many platforms out there now. You look back 15 years ago, there are a few channels, the guys are around all the time. But now between, the internet, cable, broadcast, social, there are just so many different platforms for these guys to make appearances on, and everybody's vying for their time. And it, at times, I think, is difficult to distinguish between who's credible and
Sure.
Who's not. So I think it's a challenge for the athlete, and it's a challenge for, media outlets who have, valid and legitimate requests.
Yeah, you see the show also, you kind of chasing that social media, dragging yourself there with the online and the Facebook and the Twitter and all that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, where can people find you online? Kind of give us some of the numbers real quick.
GrahamBensinger.com.
There you go.
Yeah.
Real simple right there. And In Depth, midnight, right here after Sports Extra each and every Sunday. Well done. Have a great season here.
Oh, thank you. Really a pleasure.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you bet.